Okay, Sarah, we are up on YouTube. Say hi to YouTube land.
Hi, YouTube land. How are ya?
Okay, you're ready to go for timelines. Here we go. Couple seconds of silence. Welcome to Timelines of Success. Today we have Sarah Coolidge, and she's coming to us from up at the lake. That's Kings Beach. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah. Sarah is pretty dynamic. She is a trainer, coach, you name it. She's got an interesting background. She's done all sorts of different things. So I'm going to let you tell her about some of the things that she's done to get to where you are today. So, Sarah, where are you today? What are you doing other than hanging up at Tahoe?
Oh boy, what am I doing and how did I get here? It's been a long, fun trip, let me tell you. And um, I think way back when I was a kid, one of the things that I really, really wanted to do and spent some time thinking about was have an interesting life and be an interesting person and have done a lot of things. And I think I met that goal. So I've moved around a bunch. I've been involved in many different kinds of work, and really came into parenting kind of late in life. So enjoying all of that as well. I don't even know how to answer your question. How did I get to where I am?
Well, let's tell you what you do first of all. You sort of have an organization here you established in Tahoe, and I was looking it up yesterday. It's the Reno Tahoe Networking Organization,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a
Yes,
younger one too, right?
a younger one.
I was looking up online. It looked like there was another one between 20 and 40, and then yours, and then you also put on meetups both at Truckee and in Reno, Nevada, and you get a lot of people coming and a lot of people training. It's very good, and you
Mm-hmm.
probably know more than I do. Of course, it's Snap.
Snap Networking is the name of it, and the history behind that is I'm a member of an organization called CEO Space International, and CEO Space does a lot of training and teaching around how to grow a business, basically, and from beginning to end, from your idea all the way to the exit strategy, selling that business, or however you plan to exit it. And I've been working with them for 6 years or so now. And we have in our area about 350 people like me that have graduated from CEO Space with a certificate in entrepreneurial studies or entrepreneurialism. And one of our, uh, I guess I'll pick the word goals of the organization is to provide ongoing support to our graduates. So I have been offering meetings for quite a while, designed for them, but also inviting the public in as well. And SNAP is a terminology from CEO Space. It stands for Super Networking Accelerates Potential. And our basic idea is that when we work together, we can grow our business the way we would like, and we can do it in a cooperative manner where people don't get hurt. So that involves making sure that you're aware of who you're with and what you're talking about in a very concise way. So you need to be very clear with your message. And you also need to be willing and able and open to assuming and believing that you have something to offer the other person when they are sharing their information. And so I think that that's why people like our networking meetings so much, because when they come, they're welcomed. They're not on the defense. They are able to open up a little bit and talk about what they need. Yeah, there you go. Hold up those cards. Those are our CB cards. You can, they're upside down, but there you go. Yeah. So Bill's been coming to some of our meetings, and we help each other. So that's refreshing. Many other networking events, you go in and you've got your handful of business cards, and I mean, I've had this happen to me. People just come up and sort of shove them in my face, and I why would I take your card? I don't even know who you are or what you do or anything yet. Let's be human beings for a minute. Let's find out if there is something that we can help each other with, because there is always, but you have to be willing to look for it and spend some time on that. So, that's why the meetings go so well. That's why we've had so much fun with them, in my opinion, at any rate. And it's not always CEO Space members that go, but that's fine.
That's very true. And I'll tell you, the Snap. I'm going to talk a few minutes about Snap. Then I'm going to ask you what your Snap is.
Oh,
But
dang.
first of all, I'm going to try. Now, I've evolved. I remember the first time I came to your group, and I sort of went off for 5 years and then restarted a business here in Reno. And I think I forgot how to talk to people because of what I was doing and the type of work I was in for those 5 years overseas. And I was working in different languages too. But I used to be on a council, so I spoke all the time. We had businesses, and you get really good at speaking. But this running a business and snapping and communicating is a whole different thing. And I remember what I'm trying to get into is fairly complicated. One of the things I do is podcast, but it's really about communications. So I would go into my company's New Media Gold, and it's this new media type environment. Now, if I start talking about it, you'll totally get lost. So the art is we have to take some concept down and connect to people right away so they understand what we do. And I watch what you do too, and how the world's evolving as this new communication system, new process, new marketing. So what I just say now, and I know I still need to work on it, but my snap is, hi, I'm Bill Conrad. I'm a professional podcaster. And then I have to do some call to action. I said, if you're interested in getting on my show and podcasting, talk to me after the event or something. So I'm still working on my snap. A snap is a difficult thing really to get down. You think it's like an elevator speech, but I guess it depends on what you're doing. So without further ado, though, I'm going to ask you, what is your snap?
Well, before I answer that, I want to say a little bit about what you just said because I think you did a great job, and I'm comparing it to what I remember and how we were before. And so, yay for you and for working on it. And Bill did do a great job of Snap, and because it's really all we're doing is saying who we are, and sometimes we don't even need to say that. The idea is to be very
Right.
quick because if you're at a networking event specifically for networking, you want to meet and contact, have a some kind of interaction with as many people as possible. That's the whole reason that you go to a networking event, if that's specifically what it is. So you have to be quick, and that means who you are, what you're doing, what the problem or issue is, what is interesting about you that makes you a little bit different, or why somebody might want to interact with you, and then what you're looking for next. So Bill could have said, I'm a podcaster and what I'm looking for is somebody to help me get a new microphone. It could have been something different. And often what I think both of us have seen in our time, interacting around this kind of stuff is you see people say, well, I'm a podcaster, and then they kind of stop. And if we are wanting to help, we don't know how. We don't know what they might need next. And so it's very important to have that ask, like you said. And the other way around, I've often seen when I meet people, I say, what are you looking for next? And they sort of look at me like I'm from Mars. They have often no idea how to answer the question because no one's ever asked them that. They're used to being on the defensive, to feeling as though they have to sort of push themselves into someone else's world. And when somebody just opens the doors and said, "Well, tell me, how can I help?" They are sort of shocked, but they get over it and they enjoy it. Usually, we at the end of our meetings, I often feel like we have a whole new family.
Right.
And
So you're
that,
going to have
that
to
can
tell us your snap now.
so my snap. So okay, I was not prepared for this. So what would I like
Well,
to
I
say?
know you could. I've watched you so many
Yeah,
times. I know how good you are.
yeah, yeah. So how about this one? I run Reno Tahoe Networking, and one of our activities is we do a weekly meeting online, Google Hangouts. And what I'm looking for next are people that might want to come onto our show, get some experience with doing Google Hangouts, and have a chance to share their expertise with other entrepreneurs, other people working from home. So who do you know? If you are, or you know someone who's like that, please give me your card.
And
And
that's it.
obviously, you can't give me your card right now, but you can contact me after the show.
Right. And then fill out one of these cards like this, like I did.
Yeah, if we were sitting at a table together, that's exactly what would happen.
Let's see if I
If the
can.
person was interested in being on our hangout, they would share a card. They also might know someone or have another reason that they want to connect with me. But that's an important piece that you brought up because people, often begin to ask questions. Well, tell me, is what day of the week is your hangout, and how much experience do I have to have, or whatever question they might come up with. And
Right.
that's fabulous that they have questions. That's exactly what we want. We want them to be curious. And then our answer we want to be at a networking event where we're trying to hit with everybody is, I'd love to sit down and talk to you about that. If you give me your information, we can schedule a follow-up appointment. And that way you still have a chance to meet everyone else in the room. You've collected their information, and of course it's up to you to follow up with them. And that's why you went to networking. So hopefully you'll do that. It's not a goal to sit down and answer all those questions right now because that will slow you down and it may keep you from meeting the perfect contact who might be the next one and not this one. As long as your heart is open to be helpful, you're not going to hurt anybody by saying, "Hey, we're at a networking event. now that we've had a few minutes to get a feeling for what each other's are about, I'm going to go off and meet someone else, and you can do the same.
Now you meet up with your group. You meet up in Las Vegas and different parts around the country with some pretty high-end names. Who are some of those names?
Oh, how about Bob Proctor,
Yep.
Les Brown,
In small groups.
Sharon Lechter? I mean, some amazing people that have done amazing things, and when they're together with us in our conference, is what we call it, business growth conference, they are there to give. So there's no selling of any kind, there's no upselling. And it's really nice to be in an environment for a week where all you're doing is sharing ideas, working on refining, your own language, if that's what you need to do, planning your business, setting up next steps with people that have done it and know how and are willing to sit and talk with you for an hour or two of their amazingly precious time to help you move forward. It's a really, really nice environment.
Now, one thing you're doing is actually doing Google Plus Hangouts, which I think is a really good thing to do. But you're also spending a good deal of your time face to face, meeting with real people, real shaking hands. And there's an evolution of change. There's people making a lot of money in the digital world right now who aren't really going out and touching and meeting people. How do you feel about that change or transition in marketing?
Well, I feel like, yay, this is my time in a lot of ways. I love the fact that that so much more is relationship marketing now than it used to be. That's kind of what network marketing traditionally was, but now it's all that. Nobody is doing anything pretty much without checking online about you. Who are you? What have you been doing? What's the history? Did anybody else buy this product? What did they think? I mean, there's so much going on there, and it's pretty hard to be a sneaky, icky, nasty person these days. It's getting harder and harder. If anybody, knows, if you got one of these, you can record what you see around you. And so therefore, the bad guys are being found out and they can't act nasty anymore. I think it's a great time to be alive because of this. It's given us a lot of power. But I also think that human beings, we want to connect to each other. And what we're doing now is sort of connecting, but we're not completely connected because we're separated by a computer screen and obviously some distance since you're in Reno and I'm not. So I do
She's
think
up the lake, about
yeah,
45 minutes away.
the lake.
And Kings Beach, which I love Kings Beach. It's my favorite little town. Someday I'll have a cabin there.
Okay, good. We'll be neighbors. What I was going to say is I don't think there's any substitute for human contact, face to face, really seeing someone's face. Obviously this is way better than just the phone, but even so, I think there's a balance there because that's our biology. We're designed to be close to each other and connect to each other. And when we can do it in a safe, fun way, everybody wins.
Well, this is going to become a podcast, so people will see an early look. They'll be able to see this up on YouTube, but later on, it'll get 5, 7, 8 times the number of people listening to it on the podcast. And by the way, we've been approached by national media to sign in as a broker. The top growing marketing companies now are selling to podcasters. The top growing one, which is, I can't think of the name. I should know the name. There's 2 of them. I know the name. It's a weird name. Anyway, it's 156 on the top 500, growing very fast. And I know some podcasters now getting paid $90,000 a month for our advertising. I know some 200,000, matter of fact.
That's fabulous.
And it's a small group, and I know them. I started podcasting 2 years ago, working very hard, but I'm more than podcasting. I came from a design build construction company, technology. And if I really explained all the other things, we do 7 or 8 different ways we make money. So what are we? Are we a media company, marketing company? We have revenue streams coming in. And everything you said, I think, is 100% good advice. Is you still need that face-to-face, and you need, but this virtual world is changing fast and allowing more people to have more communication. And one of the things podcasting's done for me is a developer of a SaaS product, software as a service, and has a development team, came to me and asked me to start a podcast, and it's WP Tonic. And there's pros and cons, but these guys are computer folks, and they're in the computers all the time, and they maybe don't communicate as well, but I've watched them evolve and become a better communicator. But they're very smart, very capable, and their programming is amazing. So I'm learning from these folks. But one of the things we're working on in that group, there's 5 products. It's called Mail-Right. It's reputation management. They're doing testing right now but it's about to launch. And what it does is, you'll love this, Sarah. This is what I love being in this business. And it's like, I can't do this in a snap, but when people get to know me and see the stuff we're working on, basically, you take your list. By the way, from here, this is where I work real hard. I work at this, getting this into a list, a legal list, whether it's MailChimp, Aweber, or Infusionsoft, and then start to develop processes. We're focusing on Infusionsoft right now, which I don't recommend the newbies do. Infusionsoft is a management system for email, and there's a lot to it. But I've got another person I'm working with who is a developer in Infusionsoft. So but it's too hard. It's too hard. Start with MailChimp if you're starting mail. But you go here, you start building your list. People start initially emailing people, whatever. But there's a whole process to this business. That said, the reputation management, I just want to show you how this works. You'll love this. Basically, you have your list, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 100, 200. You mail, and their clients, you mail out a survey to that list. They fill out the survey. It might be 5 questions, real fast. Let's say they give you a 4-star or a 3-star out of 5-star. They give you a 3-star. Well, our system knows that you got a 3-star. So it shoots them over here and thanks them, and then asks them how to improve, and you send a nice letter to them. Boom, it's all automated. But if they give you a 5-star, it immediately takes that verbiage, it puts it up into some of these other elements like Yelp, things like that, makes it really easy for them, and asks them if they would post on Yelp and all these reputation management systems. So now, if you have some bad ones, now you can really beef up your good ones because you have this reputation management system. And it's a slow process, but I'll tell you what, if you look around Reno and we look at realtors, we're focusing on realtors and a couple other places right now. Not many realtors really have a lot of reputation management on Yelp, or they don't have many Yelp reviews, things of that nature. But there's other places too. There's Google. There's about 5 to 7 places. But that's one of the things that I'm learning from these folks who really can't communicate to people. By the way, I don't see those people at your Snap meetup. They should be.
Well, I've seen one of them, and I mean, I know a bunch about MailRite myself.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. It needs a lot. I mean, if you understand it, we're using it and having good effects on parts of our company, but we're only using basically what it does. It puts content up on Facebook and Twitter for agents right now every day. Good content, and then they put their own content.
Social media.
Pardon me?
It's automated social media
Right.
and automated, it sounds like now even, reputation management. That automated piece I didn't know about before, so it sounds like it's getting even better because, yeah, you know, that's the problem. If one person goes out there and says this was horrible, and you don't have 20 people saying, well, yeah, actually, I thought it was great, because of what we talked about a minute ago, people are going online and checking. And
Right.
if they find something icky, then you may lose a lot of business. So
That's one of the little tiny things I'm involved in. That's why I'm only 5% of my effort, my value is in that. I actually have investments in that product right now, but this world of new media is really changing. So
no, it sure is. And it's really exciting and fun. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I feel lucky to be alive. I am not at the beginning of my life. My children are, and of course, everything for them is way easier than it is for me. But I'm just diving into it as much as I can because it's so much fun. And as I said before, I just feel like it's what I've been waiting for, the chance, because you have to be open and honest. And I have gotten in trouble in earlier lives for being somebody that would tell you what I thought. And, you know, I realize that part of that is the way I do it. I have to be softer sometimes, and I'm still learning how to do that. But at this point in our evolution, the truth is out there. And so I'm like, yay, this works for me.
I've been involved in before 9/11. I was deeply involved in politics. I started out when I was 30. But what you said about politics, I do the same thing. Well, I got elected, and sometimes if you tell everybody exactly how you feel, it's truthful, but it doesn't always work. It's a fine
Well,
line.
but they don't expect it, or some people anyway. And it's just it's the platform from which I prefer to operate. Even though, yeah, it causes problems, it just feels better when you put your head on the pillow at night as much as you can. But you know,
So, talking
now
about putting your head on the pillow, how late do you work on your computer?
oh gosh, don't ask me that. I don't work late.
That's good. Oh, up in the mountains, got
No,
that nice air.
no, I spend more time sitting in this chair working on the computer than I would like, but I bet it's not as much as you and some of the people you're speaking about.
No.
I value my sleep, and I know that if I spend a lot of time on the screen right before I go to bed, I won't be able to sleep well.
when I ran a design build construction, I'd work all day, and after 5 o'clock, I go in my office, which was nice. No one was there, and I worked till 2 o'clock in the morning on design engineering on the computer
That's,
every day. I get a lot done though.
I'm sure you do. I'm amazed at what you know. When I've sat and worked with you, I'm like, what's he doing? He's going so fast, I can't follow it.
You
But
know, yeah.
it's a balance thing, and I know I do better if I get a little bit more sleep.
I just on a side note, and you're in this too. You're learning. I'm watching you in the process. I put together WordPress websites using the Genesis Dynamic, and I can honestly say I've designed a lot of high-end houses, subdivisions, things of that nature. And it's actually more difficult to me to learn and do and create a great WordPress site than it is to design a 3,000 square foot house. Honestly, it's not as hard. It just takes more different talents to do that well, and there's so much to it. So that's the future. So going on, we're going to talk about some traditional means. What type of books do you recommend that the entrepreneur or the budding person of different ages might read? What are some of the books?
I mean, you can see back here, and I had a friend once tell
Mine are
me
over
that,
there.
books are a disease in this family. I mean, there's books everywhere, I'm looking forward to the day where I'm comfortable reading a book on a tablet instead of feeling like I need one in my hands, because I still like that a lot. So obviously, I'm a reader, and I would say, you know, before I even talked about what kinds of books, just books, period. If you read, you're much more likely to be successful. Simple as that. And most people, really, most people don't read ever again once they get out of high school. They don't read a book ever again in their lives. And many more are only reading like maybe 10 more the rest of their lives. So if you want to set yourself apart, if you want to be successful, you take a look at the traits of successful people. They all read. They all read at least like a half an hour every day to grow themselves, to be learning something. And it's not just reading fiction, unfortunately, though I'm sure there are plenty you can learn from things like historical fiction. It's reading about what areas you're trying to grow in. So it's reading biographies of people that have been successful before. It's reading how-to manuals on how to be successful, and that's where you'll read that you should be reading. It's really anything. So there are certainly some first books. I mean, one of them, I have it here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. I'll come back, I promise. Think and Grow Rich.
Yep, that's number one.
Everybody should read this book at least once or twice or 10 times or every year or something. What as we talked about before, Bob Proctor is one of our regular teachers at CEO Space, and he always is carrying his Think and Grow Rich, and it's so beat up and worn out. It was a leather version, a real hardbound version, and he has it all held together with rubber bands now. But he's always carries it, and he always shows it to us on stage, and he's been reading it his whole ever since he found it, ever since it got into his world. He reads it every day, and he's a pretty dang successful guy. So, that's one of them. And of course, I was lucky enough to spend a few weeks with Sharon, or excuse me, a few days with Sharon Lechter a few weeks ago. Her book, Think and Grow Rich for Women, is based completely on this, but is adapted to the more modern times. Because when you read Think and Grow Rich, it's all about men. And that's fine.
Right.
Number one, a man wrote it, and that was the world then. There were certainly successful women at that point in time, but not nearly as many, and they weren't as celebrated. So she's updated it with ideas for women and how they can apply the same principles in our time. It's not anything different in terms of the basic lessons of having a driving purpose and developing mastermind groups and those kinds of concepts. It's just updated. So because we have women that do things and become successful now. So those are certainly two. There's plenty more
So Think and Grow Rich and Think and Grow Rich for
for
women.
women. Hmm.
Very good. Very good. Those are two great starters. That's probably one of the top three books that we would recommend overall from everybody. It's Think and Grow Rich, and there's a few spin-offs. Very good. Is there any novel you like? Any like you like a lot of different novels? Anyone you can?
Oh, I haven't read a novel in a really long
I'm
time.
surprised. Or not a
Time.
novel, maybe some. I guess yeah, novel. I used to
I
read
could
more.
I loved E.M. Forster's books, A Room with a View, and what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Howard's End. I was actually an English major, so of course I read tons of literature when I was younger. But right now, these are the kinds of books that interest me, to help me grow, to help me be a good parent, to help me be a good leader, And the ideas are resonating with me now in a way they didn't so much when I was younger.
That reminded me, you have that English major, but you have an MA in journalism. Did you do any journalism work?
The journalism work that I have done, it was mostly photojournalism because that was why I studied journalism.
Wow.
My father was a photographer and I wanted to study photography. And I had a choice between the art school and the journalism school. So art didn't seem quite right, and I took journalism. I'm a good writer, and I did a lot of writing, but mostly it was about photography. And of course, I do some photography now, and I also do video work with CEO Space and some other places. So
You know, you just hit it. The video work, it's getting hot. I'm spending most of my time right now actually learning how to develop training and using something called ScreenFlow. I use all sorts of different tools, but something ScreenFlow, learning it inside and out. That's, I think you hit on the future. If that's an area that someone can go into right now and make money, because there's going to be more and more demand for that video work, the short clips, because the world's changing.
well, in videos, I mean, I'm assuming that everyone listening, because they're listening, has gotten the feel for okay, computers and podcasts, and there aren't a lot of people that are going to be listening that are still offline. But we know that you put words up on your Facebook page or words up on your website, and people will interact to some degree. But if you have a photo up there, they're going to interact way more because human beings are visual. They look at things and then they read. And on top of that, if you have a video where there's action, it's exponential the amount of interaction you're gonna generate. So for those of us who are trying to get people to pay attention to us online, video is the future. And of course, videos for that particular market, at least initially, need to be very short and need to get right to the point. And then when people are interested, they're willing to watch longer. But if you're boring in the first minute, or you go on and on and on before you get to any meat,
Yep.
you're going to lose your audience.
That's one of my concerns with this. We video. It started out as a pure podcast with just sound. We started streaming for folks, and then we realized we could throw in the video for free, basically, because we're creating a podcast. And that first start, we welcome. You'll have to understand it, but they'll listen to the podcast first, I think, in many cases, and go back and look at the video to get to know you and I and see what we look like. That's really good.
And that's why I like Google Hangouts. I mean, it's just my choice of how I do the video conferencing, but it's the same result. You get a video and you get an audio, and so you have two different ways that you can interact with people. And of course, you could transcribe it and have a third.
Well, Sarah, this is supposed to be a 25-minute show, and I've been bad, and we're not going to cut that much of it at all, and it's going to stay like uncut on the video. And we're at 27 minutes right now in call recorder, and I've got to go and do that Skype show. I have to go and record at the Atlantis. We have a live stream at 11:30. So we can set up fast now. They're pre-setting up right now. So
Good.
let me get to the bread and butter, the hardcore stuff of what we're evolving to in the new format. And it's working really well. And it's your success principles. And we're still working on names. You think that's a good snap, success principles?
I think it is.
Everything's a snap now. So it's Sarah's success principles. I didn't really write these down, but you have them. Can you just go over them without explaining them? Your 10 or 11, 12. I know you have a few extras, which is good.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you asked me to do this. It was really, sometimes it's kind of hard to pick things, but I enjoyed the process. So this is what I wrote. Number 1, never, never, never give up. Number 2, let go of how. 3, go within, listen to and develop your intuition. 4, listening well solves all people problems. 5, take care of your body, it's where you live. 6, think win-win. 7, know your strengths and hire your weaknesses. 8, always be learning. 9, always be teaching. 10, surround yourself with success, however you define it. And 11, lead yourself, lead your family, lead your business.
Very good. Now you get to go back and explain those. So 1, never, never, never give up. That's almost self-explanatory, but I'll let you explain it in more detail.
Well, that's Winston Churchill saying that to the English people during World War II, that, no matter how much we were bombed, we were never, never going to give up. And, things did look pretty badly for them at the time. So they didn't give up. And then we all know how that turned out. But it's persistence. And, there's a guy named Calvin Coolidge who talked a lot about persistence. And so it's something that I've paid attention to my whole life. And I really do believe you can get whatever you want. You can do your dream. as long as you don't give up on it. And that does not always mean that you're working really hard on something. It just means you don't give up. And mentally, you still believe in yourself.
Since you mentioned Winston Churchill and Never Never Give Up, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called David and Goliath, and he
Oh,
talks
great
about the
book.
Never Never Give Up and the British and Churchill and the bombing. They think now, in retrospect, the bombing of the cities, when the Germans decided to start bombing the cities instead of the military bases, that made the British stronger because of the
Makes sense.
people. Even though people died, it made the British stronger because they were even more, had more fortitude with whatever Winston Churchill did with their folks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. So here, number two, let go of how. That you have to explain that one.
And so that just means for me, a lot of times, and it kind of goes with think win-win. You know what you want, and you think that means that you have to figure out how to get it. And often you don't. You just have to believe in it and learn about it, pay attention to it. But when you let go of how this is going to happen, that you are the person that's going to come up with every single step in the process, because that can be very overwhelming and bewildering if there's a lot of skills that you don't have, or there's a lot of connections you don't have, or there's just, I can't imagine how this is going to happen. If you let go of the how, it can happen often. So I don't know if I've clarified it. I may have made it muddier, but that's what that means.
So let go of the how. Basically, you said in there, if you have a weakness in something, hire that out or contract that out and do what your strengths are. And that's hard to do sometimes. It takes money. If you don't have
Oh
money,
yeah.
you have to do more things yourself.
But don't in terms of that one, if you have weaknesses and you know there are weaknesses, I mean, all of us do, I would think, don't try to turn them into strengths. Don't, be aware of them. If you can't hire somebody, you can certainly set up systems to make it easier for you. And sometimes you can hire people, or you can barter, or you can, just short-term contracts. I mean, there are ways. I think it would be futile for me to try to make myself into an accountant. And that it would be a waste of my gifts to do that. It would be way better for me to find somebody else to do my accounting for me and me do what I'm good at.
Right. I know an accounting major who really needs to find an accountant to do their accounting.
Yeah, that's too bad, because they may have not made the right choice
Yeah.
in what they're studying. They're doing what they think is going to earn them money, but it has nothing to do with their heart and what
Yep.
their passions are.
Well, they're not doing accounting now, but they need to. I get you. Anyway,
Yeah.
go within. That was the next one, and listen and
Uh-huh.
develop your intuition.
So I think, there's a lot we can learn from each other. And we talked earlier about books and what you can learn from them. There's tons of teachers out there, and pretty much everyone we meet has something to teach us or that we can learn something from. But in the end, your internal compass is really the place you need to check with before you make a move and make a decision. Go within and pay attention to that voice. If you ignore it, you'll get off course.
That's that gut feeling. So if you're not sleeping well at night, maybe you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. And if you aren't ever paying attention to that voice doesn't go away. It gets quieter, and you can't hear it as well. Whereas if you pay attention to it more, it's much more obvious, and that makes it easier for you to make decisions as you go through your day.
So take care of your body. This is number 5. Take care of your body is where you live.
It's where you live. Yeah. Yeah. So, for the people that never sleep at night because they stay up all night working, I mean, all of us are different. We have different rhythms, but I think you might regret it someday. And you'll probably, if you're like me, want to work on something interesting until you check out. And you don't want to be living in a body that won't let you do that. And so take care of it, exercise it, feed it right, give it enough sleep.
Another thing too, you live in a very healthy place. At least I know the air is clean, there's no pollution. But some people live in cities that are highly polluted. They can't exercise. What do they do?
They can't exercise?
Well, I
Why
guess they
can't?
can. They can still exercise.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They
And
should. Yeah,
they
everyone can
and,
exercise.
and
That was
and that's where it's the whole letting go of the how. I want to be healthy, and I live in a city, and I think that the only way I could do it is if I lived in the country. So that's the how. And if you
right.
let go of the how, other ideas can come in, you know. I mean, you certainly can climb stairs in this city, and if you're worried about the air outside, well, you could do it inside. And, you know, if you want to live in a healthy environment, you can also make that happen.
I lived in two cities. I still exercised early in the morning. One was Kabul, and one was Seoul, Korea. In Seoul, Korea, they burn something called andal, and it has a lot of sulfur in it, and it feels
Mm,
like it's killing you. It
yeah.
is bad. And then
You don't live there anymore.
in Kabul, I still exercise in the morning though, early, and I worked out with like General Allen's staff. But in Kabul, they burn plastic for heat.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so bad, and there's dust. But I just that's what I was thinking. So
Yes, no, it can be a challenge, but again, I'll point out you don't live there anymore.
no, I
So
know that's one of the reasons I live in
got your way
Reno.
out of that.
We could do
Yeah.
a commercial for Tahoe Reno now too. We'll do about that at the end. We'll do a commercial for Tahoe Reno because I love it here. Okay, think
Mm.
win-win. Number 6.
And that goes along with letting go of how. I think, you know, that if you only think there is either A or B, and neither one of them feel right, then you're all stressed out. If you identify something that you want and then let go of all of the limited ideas that you might be able to come up with just on your own as to how to make that happen, but hold open the possibility that there's a way that this can work out. I don't know what it is, but there is. There's a way I can have a happy family and a successful business, you know, because some people think you can only do one or the other, for instance. You know, if you hold open the possibility, thinking win-win, I want this and I want this, and I believe it's possible, then you can do it.
Now, number 2, we sort of talked about this a little bit. Know your strengths and hire your weaknesses.
Yep.
We
Know
covered
what you're
that.
doing.
And always be learning is 8. Let's talk a little bit about that. Always be learning. What do I need to learn?
Anything. If you think you don't need to learn anything, you're in trouble. There's so much out there we don't know, and you know, there's nothing wrong with learning. This, if you look at children when they first arrive on the planet, that's all they're doing all the time. They're so curious and they're trying to learn everything. And then we get to a point in our lives often where we stop. It's like, okay, now I've had my education, you know, whether that was high school, college, post grad, whatever it was, and then I'm just like done. There's nothing left to learn. Learning is fun and it's interesting and you grow. And I mean,
You know, it's
gosh,
amazing to see different people. I went back to Toastmasters when I got back into my new line, when I got into Reno, made it through Toastmasters. It was an older Toastmasters group. And those people, they want to learn, but
hmm
they're still thinking about old techniques of learning, like the Toastmasters way without the new media like we're doing now. So there's a point where, like the millenniums, for example, are just tearing up right now. And they're buying houses, by the way, because we have real estate evolution. They think differently than someone who is 65. Someone who's 32 thinks in a language, a computing language, a new language of internet, online, digital. Someone 65, you don't meet a lot of people. I'm not 65 yet, but you don't meet a lot of people 65 who think in a modern fashion because they missed the opportunity to play with their smartphones or computers. The millennials just had a computer at home. But like my daughters have smartphones and pads and all that stuff, and they're 13 and 15. So how does somebody at 65 continue to learn? What should they do?
Well, there's plenty of things that, I mean, I can't believe that anyone would think that they know it all, number one. But just because you're 65, your brain still works and you can learn anything you want to learn. I mean, go take a class at the university if you're more comfortable in a classroom. And you know, for someone that wants to learn about speaking, Toastmasters is a great way to do it. Whether or not it's the only way
Right.
is definitely, you know, I don't think it is, but it may be the way that suits you. Just having an open attitude about, you know, "Oh, gee, I really thought I knew this, but actually I'm not sure that I do. What makes me think that I know this? You know, what really is my experience? What have I actually really done in this area to make me feel as though I'm an authority? Or that the person that's telling me their opinion is an authority as well, because you know, we listen sometimes to opinions from people about what we ought to do or what the world is like or whatever, and they're just opinions. They
So
don't
that's a
have
good
any
lead.
experience to back it up.
Yeah, good lead in for 9. Always be teaching. Now, when I think of teaching, teaching can be a lot of different things. When you have a child, you teach the child their whole life. Hopefully, you give them advice and guidance. Always be teaching. A politician, I don't know if they're trying to get elected or are they out there communicating and teaching to people that I'm the right way, or the politician. So go into always be teaching 9.
Well, I think it's an obligation maybe, and I don't know if that's the word I would use if I had a lot of time to think about it. But once you have learned something, once you have experienced something, once you have had the benefit of moving forward or what feels like forward to you, turn around and look behind you and see if there's anything that you can now offer someone who might be struggling with the same kind of a situation. Obviously, I also believe that each of us are responsible for our own learning because that's, the one before, that you should always be learning. And there are people out there that aren't interested in learning. So, for you to try to teach them anything would probably be a waste of time. But you can certainly always be teaching through your example.
Very good.
So,
Surround
how you,
yourself with success.
yep, surround yourself with success, however you define it. So, if you want to be rich and have lots of money, then hang out with people that have a lot of money. Get as close to them as you can. Learn about them, read about them, and act like them. If you are hanging out with people that are broke, you're going to stay broke. That there's a lot of evidence to that, and it makes sense when you think about it. How could somebody that hasn't ever made any money be able to help you know how? They don't know. They've never done it. So if that's one of your goals, be around it. If you want to be around, if you would very much like to be a really good parent, then that's what you want to study. You don't want to hang out with people that are not doing that. It's just simple. You internalize it, you absorb it, you become it.
Now, you and I both lead mastermind groups in Tahoe, Reno area. A lot of people who we meet are struggling, yet we were with them, we talk to them, we work with them. So what's the level there? You still have to work with people who you're trying to help bring up because you talked about teaching, but you also need to see those examples of success. So what's the balance? There's sort of a dichotomy there. Surround
Yeah,
yourself with successful people, but there's some people who I don't consider maybe financially successful. They're struggling, they're working. I still consider them friends and somewhat loyal to them.
of course. It's just, do you go to them for advice on your money? Do
No,
you,
no.
do you spend a lot of time
There you
talking to
go.
them when they're in a negative space? Or do you set it up so that when we're interacting, we're doing it in an area that works well for both of us? Like, maybe
That's
you
good.
go hiking together, which is something that you both enjoy and it has nothing to do with success in that sense. And you may have to limit the amount of time you spend with them. A lot of people want to interact with us for whatever reasons, but I don't spend 8 hours a day with our meetup. It's only, a
Right.
few hours a week that as many people as show up can interact. And if they want to spend more time, they got to pay more money.
Hey, before we go to our last little section here, last comment that your last of your success principles, you mentioned something. What's your schedule like? Do you plan or batch your week? How do you work your week?
Well, definitely I plan it. I mean, I have regular meetings that repeat all the time, and I still have a mindset of Monday through Friday, even though I don't have an employer that I work for. So Saturday, Sunday, I try to use for family time more and for doing things that are more important to me personally. During the week feels more like work. So I don't know if I'm answering your question
Well, I
very
know on
well.
Wednesdays I see you down at Swills in Reno quite often. So I know
Yeah,
you
Wednesday,
you you
every
cycle
day.
through Reno on Wednesday, and
And sometimes, I mean, today I'm going to Reno as well because there's a meeting I'm going to for me to learn. Because, I have my meetings where I'm helping other people, and also receiving help. Don't get me
well,
wrong. I don't think I'm like the big authority on much of anything,
this will be up on
actually.
YouTube tonight. Normally it's up within 5-10 minutes, but I have to run. What
Oh,
meeting are you
yes.
going to?
It, gosh, AMA, which I think is American
Oh, right.
Marketing Association.
Yep.
I don't even know. Does it say?
No,
No.
AMA I know is in town
I
there.
think that's what it is. They're having a luncheon on storytelling
Wow, very
and
good.
what helps in marketing. And I know that storytelling is a big deal for speaking, and I enjoy talking. Here I am, blah blah blah,
Right.
and I'd like to learn more about storytelling. So I thought I'd go.
That's really good. I agree. That's one that we didn't really talk. That's a skill set that really helps
It's
what
a
we're
really
doing.
important skill set for speaking. Yeah, because people don't want to just hear information. They get caught into a story. That's how we shared knowledge when we didn't have the written word, was through story. And people want a story. So I'm looking forward to learning some more about it.
Well, here's your last success principle. I think I caught them all. Lead
Yeah,
yourself, lead your family, lead your business. I like that. That sort of ties everything together. But I'll let you expound on that because I think you've talked
yeah.
about those things through this whole dialogue today.
And really, thank you. When I wrote it, it wasn't supposed to be number 11. It was supposed to be kind of like what you just said. It's my overarching belief, or mantra, or how I see the whole puzzle, which is you've got to lead yourself first. And depending, of course, on where you are in the reproductive cycle of life, lead your family, to me seems second. That's what I want to be. And then you can lead your business. I don't believe you can lead a business without being able to lead yourself. That's for dang sure. And the family piece, for some people, there may not be much of a family. I mean, I do believe all of us have connections and relationships, and you can define family any way you want. But what I mean is you take care of yourself, you take care of what's close to you, and then you take care of the world. And you can't do it in a different order, in my opinion.
Well, Sarah, we thank you for coming on today. How can the listener reach you?
You can reach me by sending me an email to sarah@sarahcoolidge.com. If you go to that website,
We're
we're
working on it.
still
We'll get that
working on
website going. I've seen it evolve.
it.
Hey,
Yeah,
one
I'm
last thing I thought about. I know you've dealt into politics, right? You
yep, ran for office last fall.
yep, dealt into it, and so you're watching the politics. Last question. This is a crazy question I'm throwing out there.
Uh-oh.
What do you think of the Republican-Democrat races right now? And Bernie Sanders is coming to town tonight, which
Oh, what do
I happen
I
to be a
think?
Republican, but I'm going to go watch him. I listen to everybody.
Well, there you go. Always learning, and that's how things change. I think that we have a lot of people that are entrenched and are only looking at fighting and arguing and what they're against. And I am interested in being with people who know what they're for and what they believe in and what they want to see happen, not what they want to cross off the list. What do they want to add to it? And so, I can get kind of discouraged about politics sometimes. So,
Well, I think you just gave excellent advice to anybody thinking about running for office. Talk about what you're for. Don't worry
mhm,
about what you're against, and don't worry about your opponent. I think
mhm.
that's the best advice. That's after I was in politics forever, and I've evolved to that same philosophy. So very good. Well, thank you, sir, for coming on. Enjoy your trip down the hill. It's a beautiful trip. Coming down Mount Rose, or are you going to go around the Truckee Way?
I'll probably go the other way. Depends on what time it is, but I'll be in Atlanta, so I'll wave at you if
Oh
I
yeah,
see
we'll
you.
be in the same place. Take care.
Yeah.
I got to run.
All right. Thank you, Bill. It was great.
Thanks. Good show. Stay on the line for a second. We're still recording, so we're still on, so you know. But we do thank you. You're on YouTube. That will be the podcast. We'll cut that at that point. So anything we want to give last information to the listener or the person who actually comes up on the, if the person's listening on YouTube, they're, believe it or not, probably more interested than they are than the person listening on the podcast. And they remember more because they've gone usually from the podcast to the YouTube.
Well, I want to say hi and thanks for coming.
Yeah, that's good.
And keep coming back. You can go to my YouTube channel, Monday Momentum. That's our show every week.
Yeah, we'll
And
put that up in show notes. Also, if you're in town on Wednesdays, you'll find myself and you usually down at Swills quite often.
yeah, 1 Million Cups is a fabulous meeting
Yeah.
for those of us who are in the Reno Tahoe area and are interested in entrepreneurialism. You meet some really great people. You get to hear about interesting projects that are going on. And for I mean, I remember Bill saying this last week, I think, or the
I
week
love
before.
One MC.
This is my day out of the cave.
Yeah, so we didn't talk about that. That's true.
That's how, it's not, I mean, I'm not quite in a cave, but I get that feeling. It's like, yeah, this is the day I actually know for sure I'm going to be talking to people face to face.
I've
Real.
got to get out. I used to,
Okay.
I led as in the military. Most of my life was during the day. I was always out. I wasn't behind a desk. I was out forward leading or doing something. But what I find in this business we're in now, I have to put the time in. I had to re-educate myself. And I had to spend the hours studying code and in both different PHP and all the different elements that I had to know those basics to be able to lead other people in these fields. So I've had to spend a lot of time just studying. And I still am. I'm studying now what you've studied in school, how to make the small short clips. Those are things that we have to do. So I've had to spend those hours re-educating.
Well, and I need to do that too. And
But
we're
you're out a
always,
lot. I think you're out face to face talking to people a lot more.
well, but I'm trying to build a networking empire, so I've got a network.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all
Yeah.
coming.
That's right. We have it.
All
It's
right. I'm
growing.
going to actually turn off now so we can talk quiet.